Welcome back to every naval battle in history. Following the Battle of Drepana and the horrendous losses to storms suffered by the Romans around that time, the Carthaginian and Roman fleets retired to lick their wounds and rebuild their strength, a process that would take years. In the meantime, things have not calmed down in the Greek world, where the vicious Macedonian warlords who'd found themselves ruling the great empires of antiquity were utterly unrestrained in the murder and mayhem they'd unleash on each other. In today's episode, it's Ptolemaic Egypt versus the Kingdom of Macedon at the Battle of Andros, 246 BCE. As almost nothing is known about the actual battle, let's get our heads around what is going on in the Greek world around now. The fundamental thing to understand is that in the wake of Alexander's conquests, very fragile Greek regimes were running some of the wealthiest polities in the world. The vast swathe from modern-day Turkey south to Egypt and east all the way to India was notionally under the control of these governments. Macedon itself did not have the wealth of Egypt or Mesopotamia or Anatolia, but it did have a supply of Greeks, which the others were desperately short of, and the Antiquity dynasty played its hand pretty well. Now, in 246 BCE, Antiochus II Theos, the Seleucid emperor, died. Here's a rather good map from 240, which gives a decent view of the state of play around this period. Seleucid control stretching from the Aegean shore and out well past the Caspian Sea. Earlier in his life, Antiochus II had married Laodice, and had a bunch of children with her. Then, to bring the Second Syrian War with Egypt to an end, he had divorced Laodice, delegitimized her children, and married the daughter of Ptolemy II, Berenice. When Ptolemy II had finally succumbed to his lifetime of heroic excess, Antiochus II divorced Berenice, took back Laodice, and promptly died, possibly by poisoning, possibly by the unforgiving Laodice. This left the vast Seleucid Empire with 2 dowager queens and 2 successors. This is a recipe for carnage. Made worse by the 2 vengeful queens being closely related to the King of Egypt, in the case of Berenice, and the rest of the Seleucid aristocracy in the case of Laodice. Laodice settled the succession by murdering Berenice and Berenice's infant son, the legal heir, in the summer of 246. The Hellenistic world was an unforgiving place for infant heirs to thrones. This is why the Third Syrian War is often referred to as the Laodicean War, in honour of her brutal murder of all who opposed her. Ptolemy III was not pleased by the murder of his sister and nephew, and unleashed his armies very successfully into the guts of the Seleucid Empire, conquering Antioch, winning battles of Anatolia and Syria, and even reaching as far as Babylon. While he was occupied avenging his sister and infant nephew, the Macedonians struck. In Macedon, old Antigonus II Gonatas had been on the throne on and off since 277 BCE. 30 years is a long time to reign in the Hellenistic world. Born in 320, he was in his 70s when this war kicked off. His father was Demetrius the Besieger, and his grandfathers were Antipater, the last regent of Alexander's empire, and the original Antigonus One-Eyed. Now, both the Egyptians and the Macedonians played a vicious great game in mainland Greece and the islands, stirring up trouble for each other and keeping the Greeks weakened by internal strife that, frankly, they didn't need much encouragement for. Antigonus Gonatas got his fleet together and smashed the Ptolemies off the coast of Andros, in the process taking control of the Cyclades island chain, which ripped a lot of wealth out of the Ptolemies' control. On the other hand, the Egyptians were short of Greek-speaking manpower, not money. They had plenty of money. This loss of the Cyclades was more than offset by the rich provinces in Syria the Ptolemies gained. As for the Seleucids, Laodice forced her son Seleucus II to take her younger son Antiochus Hierax as a co-ruler. Hierax promptly rebelled and took most of Asia Minor, which forced Seleucus II into making peace with Ptolemy III. Someone really should make a show out of all this. Strap in, folks, we've got lots more to cover as we take on every naval battle in history. Smash those like and subscribe buttons, ring that bell, you don't want to get left behind.